Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 463 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. One thing that we know for sure, one thing that is evident is people, organizations, teams react differently to desperation. Desperation is a thing that really shows you how mentally tough somebody is, really shows you how mentally weak somebody can be. Desperation makes people do things that, frankly, they probably wouldn't do or probably wouldn't feel the need to do at that moment if desperation wasn't in the room. And let's not get it twisted here. Everything that we heard last week from the New York Jets, their record being what it was, them playing the way that they're playing, they are a desperate team. In fact, I would say they were probably the most desperate team going into week 6. And trust me, we talked about it all week. Not just here at the podcast. I'm trying to fix my hoodie, my fault, yeah. Not just here at the podcast. There we go. Not just here at the podcast, but social media and news outlets was talking about how desperate this New York Jets team was. You fire your coach, Robert Saleh, and on top of that, you do that in the same week you are potentially playing for the number 1 seed in your division. Aaron Rodgers in the offense hasn't been humming the way that you think it should be humming. The record isn't. You beat Will Levis and you beat Jacoby Brissett, one of which is not a quarterback right now anymore, or at least a starting quarterback right now. Those are your only wins on the season. So the level of desperation was and is quite high for the New York Jets. And one thing that we know about desperation is it could dissipate or it can inflate depending on results of games, results of weeks. And you heard a lot of people say it after the game. Obviously, we're about to talk about the game, but you heard a lot of people talk about it after the game. This was the game. Going up against a divisional rival in the Bills, this was the game that you wanted. We needed to get it on track. You have a new coach, essentially, and you're hoping that everything clicks. And as we sit here today, the Jets are now 2-4 after losing to the Buffalo Bills 23-20. Now, we're obviously going to talk about Davante Adams. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're also going to talk about Amari Cooper. We're going to talk about that in a second. But let's just talk about this game. And the narrative of this game, especially after the game, is it was Aaron Rodgers' fault. Aaron Rodgers threw an interception late in the game. Actually, the game-sealing interception, essentially, to Mike Williams. I'm not going to put it all on Aaron Rodgers. I don't think you should put it all on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers played the best game of his Jets career, essentially this game. He threw for 294 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. The offense looked really good, which is, shocking that the offense looked good after you demote Nathaniel Hackett from play calling, but that's neither here nor there. Aaron Rodgers essentially played his best game. But what I think this game showed me And it's been kind of evident while on the Jets, but I think this game was a clear sign to me of the times we're in with Aaron Rodgers. I talked about this last episode. It's crazy to think that people are shocked. I'm shocked because I'm people. People are shocked that a 41-year-old quarterback hasn't been able to get it done, hasn't been able to be the greatness that he's been his entire career. Not everyone ages like LeBron James. Not everyone is Tom Brady. Those are outliers. That doesn't take away from the greatness that Aaron Rodgers is and has been, but to think that Aaron Rodgers was going to be the Tom Brady that went to Tampa, that was naive for a lot of people. But one thing that I do know about Aaron Rodgers, and this kind of bring it full circle, is what I realized on Monday, because this was Monday Night Football. In his heyday, in his prime, Aaron Rodgers was that quarterback that you knew no matter what happened in the game, if you had Aaron Rodgers, you had a shot. Patrick Mahomes is in that seat comfortably now. A bunch of things can go wrong for your team, but if you have Patrick Mahomes, you still have faith that your team's going to win, and actually, you still have a good shot of winning. That was Aaron Rodgers for majority of his career. You could have missed field goals. You could have turnovers. Whatever you had, if at the end of the game that the Green Bay Packers or whatever team Aaron Rodgers was on or is on, if they were in a field goal or in a score to win the game, you knew that you had a good shot of winning because you have 12, Aaron Rodgers' number. You have Aaron Rodgers with the ball. Monday showed me that that's done. Now, there has been signs, obviously, all season. But Monday was the perfect game where Aaron Rodgers would usually rise up. It's a low-scoring game. You have the ball with 3 minutes left. This is your time. Yes, you had 2 missed field goals. The team was essentially inept in the red zone, but you still had the ball with time left, and it was in your hands. And this is the second game where a late Aaron Rodgers interception essentially sealed the loss for the Jets. Again, I'm not putting this loss entirely on Aaron Rodgers. But what I am saying is I don't think Aaron Rodgers is at that place in his career where if he's on the team or if you're down and Aaron Rodgers has the ball with a shot to either tie or win the game, it's not a foregone conclusion anymore that Aaron Rodgers is going to take you to the heights that you want to get to. That's done. Aaron Rodgers also has not thrown a 300-yard game as a Jet. Again, he's played the Patriots. He's played the Titans. Not exactly terrible defenses, but what you saw on Monday night was a team that was desperate. A team that put all their cards in the middle of the table. and still lost. You also saw the team that just fired their defensive-minded head coach. And what do you know? Playing against the Bills, their defense didn't look good. Their offense, though, which they also demoted Nathaniel Hackett, their offense was humming. Their offense looked great until they got to the red zone. Again, it would be naive of me to blame Aaron Rodgers for this loss, because that would be untrue. Aaron Rodgers was not the reason. Aaron Rodgers was the best player on the field for the Jets. But gone are the days where just having Aaron Rodgers meant that you had a shot at the end of the game. And on top of that, while yes, Aaron Rodgers did throw for 294 yards and 2 touchdowns, this is yet another game where he was not the best quarterback on the day. That was Josh Allen. I started this episode by saying desperate teams and desperation makes teams do things that they essentially maybe wouldn't have done, maybe would have held it off. Maybe you have to give up more than you would because you're desperate. And you saw that the day after the game where the Jets traded for Davante Adams. Now, if you heard last episode, and you've heard many people talk, Dan Orlowski, Shannon Sharp, most people have talked about this. It was almost a foregone conclusion that once you heard about unease, once you heard that Davante Adams' time in Oak or in Vegas was essentially over, you pretty much knew he was going to be a Jet. I know that there were stories saying, oh, well, they may not. The Raiders may not trade him because they're not getting what they asked for. That's where desperation comes in. I'll say this. I'm not saying he wouldn't be a Jet. But I'm sure that if the Jets would have won against the Bills on Monday Night Football, I don't think Davante Adams would have been a Jet on Wednesday, October 16th. Or, let me back up. I don't think he would have been a Jet that Tuesday, yesterday. Ain't no way. Desperation. This team is desperate. And let me ask you, let me tell you why the Jets are desperate. The Jets are desperate because of perception. The Jets are desperate, like I said, going into this season. There is a lot of expectation on this Jets team. Not just from the outside, but from the inside. This team is you know what it is? You remember when it's interesting how we look at quote unquote super teams, how we look at teams that are built to win it all immediately. And it's interesting because I was thinking about how we would look at them differently if they didn't essentially meet their goal. Like, what if that Rams team that had Matthew Stafford, that had Aaron Donald, that had Odell Beckham Jr., Von Miller, what if that team that was built to win that year, what if that team didn't win? We would look at that team, we will look at some of those players much differently. What if the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant didn't win? What if the Miami Heat with LeBron James, D. Wade, what if they never won? While I'm not calling the Jets a super team, but the Jets felt like they were that team that they were just a quarterback away. They had even with Robert Saleh, Now, you can say he was a bad coach. You can say he was a terrible coach. That's on you. And that's fine. I'm not saying he was the best coach. His record wasn't great. But what I am saying is, with Robert Saleh, this defense was humming. The Jets had one of the best defenses. It was just when you have Zach Wilson as your quarterback, you're always a step behind. And they felt that when you have Sauce Gardner, when you have Quentin Williams, when you have C.J. Mosley, you think that you're just a quarterback away because you don't have to worry about the defense. The defense is already top tier. So when you get a Hall of Fame quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, you think, okay, we've said that we're a quarterback away. Now we have one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. We should be Super Bowl contenders. Now you can kind of chalk last year away because Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays into the season. But that also amplifies the pressure for this year. You have a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers. You got his safety blankets in Aaron Lazard. You still have Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall's coming back. All of the components of expectation are there. So when you look up and you're 2-4 and you haven't beat a winning team, you have not beat a team with a winning record. You have not beat a team with a competent quarterback yet. Those expectations that you have coming into the season, you cling on them so heavily. It's like, hold on. We thought we're a quarterback away. We spent so much money to rebuild this roster, mainly the offense. When you have Tyron Smith and you have all the piece on the offensive line, people were saying that there may be too much talent on the offensive line. So when you look up today and you're nowhere close to the expectation that you thought you would be, you have to figure out why. And when you're unable to look at the fact that a lot of the things that you swung at, you missed. A lot of the pitches that you swung at. Right now, the Aaron Rodgers move has been a miss. Right now, the offensive line has been a miss. When you're unwilling to live with that, when you're unwilling to admit that some of the moves that you thought were good weren't, at least up to this point, that turns into desperation. I said this last episode, or the episode when we were talking about Davante Adams. Davante Adams is still a number one receiver. I don't think he is the top receiver, but he's still a number one receiver. And it would be naive of me to think that Davante Adams on the Jets wouldn't be a plus. When you get a receiver as great as I believe a future Hall of Famer. When you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback and now a future Hall of Fame wide receiver that is as accomplished as both of them are together, I would say also, this is going to improve. This is going to help the Jets. The Jets are better today than they were on Monday. But you would also be naive into thinking that Davante Adams is the elixir that is going to change the fortunes of this Jets team. Davante Adams doesn't do anything to help this offensive line. Davante Adams doesn't do anything to now help with the defense that has been that is on decline. Davante Adams doesn't do anything to help the connection between Aaron Rodgers and someone like a Garrett Wilson. Davante Adams is a Band-Aid on a cut that needs stitches. Davante Adams is a Band-Aid on a broken arm. Yes, I'm not going to sit here and say that Davante Adams isn't going to help. And I think that he has an ability to help tremendously. But you would be foolish to think that Davante Adams now fixes the Jets. The last thing I'm going to say about the Jets before I talk about the other move that we saw shortly after Davante Adams is this. I've said this before. It's extremely hard to run away from the past, especially when remnants of the past is still in the present. The Jets have been a, let's say, inept organization for as long as I've been alive. They've had a few good years sprinkled in it, but overall, they haven't been a marquee franchise. And one thing that we've seen, whether we talk about the turnaround for the Kansas City Chiefs, the turnaround for the Saints, the turnaround for the Colts, the turnaround for the Golden State Warriors, hell, the turnaround for the Cleveland Cavaliers. It usually takes more than one or two transactions, especially if remnants of gunk, remnants of the filth is still there. I'm not saying that the ownership is exactly to blame for this. But what I am saying is, what the Jets are trying to do is they're trying to change the trajectory of this team without knowing how to do it, without knowing the formula that it is. Look how long it took the Golden State Warriors to be the dynasty that they were. Look how long it took the Patriots to be good. The Jets, one thing that those teams didn't do, and that the Jets are doing, is they're letting desperation dictate their moves. Do I think that Davante Adams was a smart move? Yes. And I think it was the right move. That's why people, including myself, was saying that more than likely Davante Adams is going to be a Jet once he requested a trade out of Vegas. But if you think you're going to paint this, and if they think, which they clearly do, that Davante Adams is going to change the trajectory of this team, you are sadly mistaken. Davante Adams doesn't change the fact that Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers of old. Still really good, but he's not a great quarterback right now. Davante Adams doesn't change the fact that this offensive line that you spent a lot of money on has missed this season. This offensive line is terrible. If they're not allowing sacks, they're getting timely penalties, which is what we saw on Monday night. The Jets are not. The Jets haven't shown to be a competent organization, and because you have an Aaron Rodgers and now you have a Davante Adams, they've been able to masquerade as one. But the thing about parties and the thing about masquerading as something is your true self is eventually going to come to the light. Eventually, you got to take that mask off. And what's unfortunate for Jets fans is I think they're starting to realize, even with a beautiful mask, even with a beautiful suit, once you take that mask off, you're still the same old Jets. And you know what's crazy? I think the more impactful move happened a couple hours after Davante Adams, and that was the Buffalo Bills getting Amari Cooper. This move was so smart in a lot of ways. It was smart just for the Bills, and it was also smart for what this means for the rest of the league. Let me speak on the Bills first. The biggest indictment on the Bills this year has been Josh Allen hasn't had a number one receiver. While we like Shakur, while we like Coleman, while we like I forgot his name, the dude that doesn't wear shoes. I forgot his name. I apologize. While they have continued to improve week after week, they still don't have a number one receiver. They still struggle with, outside of Shakur, he's probably their best person, Khalil Shakur, he's probably their best one of getting separation. They still struggle with getting consistent separation. They don't have a number one receiver, a receiver that at the end they don't have a Stephon Diggs. In all intents and purposes, Amari Cooper is that. And yes, I have Amari Cooper. Let me be honest about Amari Cooper for a second. Oh boy, the issue that many people have had with Amari Cooper, not just me, is, and I think this has been the biggest indictment on his career, is he's such a roller coaster ride of a player. One game you look and say, yo, Amari Cooper is a top 5 wide receiver in the league. Then the next game you look and he had two receptions for like 5 yards and be like, damn, I totally forgot Amari Cooper was even in the game. And that doesn't happen once or twice. That happens almost weekly. And on top of that, yes, the Browns is a dumpster fire. We're going to talk about the Browns later, but the Browns are a dumpster fire. And Deshaun Watson is a big reason for that, and his ineptitude and his inability to play like a competent quarterback. But let's not get it twisted. There's a reason why the Browns led the league in drop passes by a country mile. Amari Cooper drops the ball a lot. Now, I'm not tearing him down. I'm just saying what is true. When you are evaluating a player, one thing that you usually want to do is you want to evaluate, like, take the highs. Is he closer to his highs or is he closer to his lows? And when you have an Amari Cooper, to me, he's closer to his highs. He is a number one receiver. And that just enhances this Buffalo Bills team that has been much better than I thought they would be going into the season. I don't know if this puts them in Super Bowl contention, but it definitely brings them to another level. Whether that level is Super Bowl or not, we'll see. But Josh Allen is still amongst the league leaders in passing. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So to pair him with a player as good as Amari Cooper, no, Amari Cooper isn't the Stephon Diggs, but that's still a number one receiver, and I think that opens up this offense. You see, the difference between Amari Cooper going to the Bills and Davante Adams going to the Jets is Amari Cooper essentially solves their number one problem. Davante Adams does not. Davante Adams is better than Amari Cooper. Let's not get that twisted. But he doesn't solve the Jets' number one issue. He does that for the Bills, or at least it's projected that he will do that for the Bills. The Bills' running game has been really good. Their offensive line has been really good. Their defense has been spotty, but it's been better than advertised. They just don't have a competent, a solid they have a solid receiving core. They just don't have that receiver to emerge as a number one. Now they have Amari Cooper. And I know fantasy owners are, especially owners or fantasy owners that have Amari Cooper is singing from the heavens because you go from Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen. Another thing that this does, and I think that this is the bigger picture, and I think that this is the main reason why I think that Amari Cooper going to the Bills was such a bigger, impactful move than Davante Adams going to the Bills. It has nothing to do with the Bills. It has everything to do with the rest of the league. More specifically, the Kansas City Chiefs. We know that the Kansas City Chiefs are in desperate need right now of a number one receiver because Rashid Rice is out for the season. On top of that, they're dealing with injuries at the running back position, and they just want someone that is reliable in that sense. Like, yes, you can say Kareem Hunt he's not the Kareem Hunt of old. Juju Smith-Schuster has never been a number one receiver. They don't have that impact receiver anymore due to Rice being hurt, and they're in desperate need of that. And you hear names like Amari Cooper. You hear names like DeAndre Hopkins. Sometimes I wonder how things happen. Or let me say this. Sometimes I wonder how other teams let things happen. Like, I always wonder, how in God's name did the league let Derrick Henry get on the Baltimore Ravens? How in God's name did the league let Randy Moss get on the Patriots? Trust and believe. When you have a quarterback in an organization as good as Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, if you would have you can still, DeAndre Hopkins can still go to, they can still go find a number one receiver, and this can all be mute. But trust and believe, Amari Cooper on the Kansas City Chiefs would be a game changer. Amari Cooper on the Baltimore Ravens would be a game changer. So this was essentially a offensive-defensive move, meaning you're playing offense as far as you're getting Amari Cooper, you're getting Josh Allen, a number one receiver, you're getting Josh Allen more help, you're getting this offense an explosive wide receiver. Don't let his last few years, outside of the drops and the inconsistency, don't let his last few years fool you. When Amari Cooper is up there, he is up there. And you're also playing defense. You're not allowing him to go to a Kansas City Chiefs that really need a number one receiver. You're not allowing him to go to the Baltimore Ravens that are starting to get, or ain't starting, their offense is clicking. I think that was a more impactful move. I don't know if it turns them into a Super Bowl caliber team, but I think that we're going to find out. And I think that move, because of everything I just said, was more impactful. But congratulations to the Buffalo Bills for beating the Jets 23-20. You ever have that feeling that someone doesn't like you? You ever get that swelling feeling of, yo, that person is disrespecting me? That person does not like me at all. That is exactly what the Dallas Cowboys probably should have felt after losing to the Detroit Lions 47-9. I'll say that again. The Detroit Lions beat the Dallas Cowboys 47-9. Now, this was a little bit more than a beatdown. Disrespect is different than, I'll say this actually. There's a difference between respecting your opponent and not respecting your opponent. Or there's a difference between respecting your opponent and disrespecting your opponent. Just because you disrespect someone, I know it sounds crazy and I know it sounds like a oxymoron, but just because you disrespect someone doesn't mean that you don't have respect. It just means that you're not showing that respect. I think every team respects. I mean, this is still the league. This is still the NFL. And I think that every team respects every team. But I think that there was a different feeling to this Lions and Cowboys game, especially when you see how the Cowboys beat the Lions last year and what that meant for the Lions in terms of the playoffs and how the Cowboys won. How controversial you can say it was. So going into this game, you can tell that, which is crazy, you can tell that there was a little bit more oomph. There was a little bit more to gain for the Lions than it was for the Cowboys. On top of that, which is why I said that was scary, because the Lions are also miles better than the Cowboys. The 47-9 win isn't the most disrespectful thing. The most disrespectful thing is how they were winning, how that they were running routes for their linemen. They ran multiple routes, not just a turn and catch. They were running routes for their linemen, for Penei Sewell. In the NFL, that is the highest form of disrespect. A person that doesn't have the agility, doesn't have the capability of playing wide receiver, you're running routes for them. And in no way, shape, or form did you think that they didn't let off the gas at all against the Cowboys. Going into this game, I think my question to people that are listening, my question to Cowboys fans is, what about this year? Scratch that. What about these last 2 years made you think that the Cowboys were going to beat the Lions? No, I didn't think that the Lions were going to be almost 40 points better than the Cowboys. But what made you think that? Was it the game that you essentially were supposed to lose when you played the Lions last season? Newsflash: the Cowboys aren't a good team. We've been saying this. The Cowboys are not a good team. They have good players. I think Dak Prescott is a good player. CeeDee Lamb is a good player. Michael Parsons is a good player. DeMarcus Lawrence is a good player. Trayvon Diggs is a good player. Deron Bland is a good player. But they're not a good team. They're a team that doesn't have a running back or that doesn't have a running game, which is why still to this day I will never understand why you just gave up on pursuing Derrick Henry, who, in all intents and purposes, has been the best running back in the league this year. When you're a one-dimensional team and you're not that good, there shouldn't be much expectation because you're not that good. I think the Cowboys is that team that they've been for years. And that is a team that regularly beats up on bottom feeders. They beat up on teams that they should beat. Like, they'll destroy the Tennessee Titans. They'll destroy the Panthers. They would beat the dog-ish out the Panthers. But then when they play competent teams, when they play teams that are good, when they play teams that would make the playoffs, they usually lose those games. And I think the worst part about it is now, and that's what the difference between this year and last year is, now they're closer to the bottom feeding teams because of their own doing than the top dwellers, than the top tier teams. Dallas is now closer to the Panthers. They're closer to the Giants than they are the Ravens, the Lions, the Green Bay Packers, the last few teams that smacked them at home. Dak Prescott's good, but Dak Prescott isn't good enough to put a team on his back, a team this lacking of superior talent. He's not good enough to put it on his back and then carry them. The connection between him and CeeDee Lamb is good, but it's not groundbreaking good. CeeDee Lamb still only caught for 89 yards. And unfortunately, I don't see, unless they address their running game, which I don't know who's available right now. I don't know who. You had Derrick Henry, who lives in Dallas, who works out in Dallas, who wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy majority of his life. I don't know who would be available right now. I don't know if there was a realistic thing, but you probably could have got Saquon Barkley, seeing as though he went from divisional rival Giants to the divisional rival Eagles. So I'm sure if you would have made some moves, you may have gotten Saquon Barkley. I just don't know the wide or the running back that is available right now that will change the fortunes. I will say it yet again. Where the hell is Dalvin Cook? And I'm not saying that to say that Dalvin Cook would change. He wouldn't. But I thought that he was. People were saying, "Oh, the Baltimore Ravens lost a key piece in the running game, and now he's on the Dallas Cowboys." Well, where is he? Oh, and for Jerry Jones to go on that radio show and pretty much chastise the questions. Look, I'm not questioning Jerry Jones' ownership acumen. I'm not questioning his ability to make money. I'm not questioning his ability to essentially build a winning team. Back in the day, he ain't done that in a while. There's no way you can look at this Dallas Cowboys team and think, after losing 47-9, that this team is a. In fact, when is the last time a Super Bowl team? When's the last time the Kansas City Chiefs lost by damn near 40? It's probably happened sooner than I'm remembering, but it doesn't happen too often. The last beatdown I think I can remember the Chiefs have had was against the Raiders last year. But I don't even think that was by 40. So for Jerry Jones to get on that radio show and pretty much go at the host for asking him a simple question. Ask him a question about, like, how do we change what's going on here? And he snaps at them like, "Come on, Jerry, bro. You ain't done nothing of recent merit to think that question was not warranted. You ain't done nothing, bro. This team ain't won a Super Bowl since what, 90 something. And with all this money that you dishing out, you're obviously not giving it to the right people because, oh, and last thing I'll say on the Cowboys. For people that's saying that, oh, of course it's going to happen. Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence didn't play. If you think that Michael Parsons, as great as he is, if you think that Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence were 40-point differences, there's an issue, bro. The Lions is a Super Bowl caliber team. And you're starting to see, there's starting to be separation between the Super Bowl caliber teams and the teams that are not. Like, it's starting to, and we'll talk about them in a second. It's starting to look different what the Ravens are doing. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs. It's different what the Lions are doing. We're still trying to figure it out with the 49ers, but it's different. When the Lions have everything, when they're firing on all cylinders, it's tough to beat. Damn near unstoppable, especially offensively. When you have Jahmyr Gibbs, when you have David Montgomery, when you have Sam Laporta, when you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, when you have Jameson Williams, like when they're humming on all cylinders. Now Tim Patrick, who's been injured majority of his last few years. It's tough. But I will say this, and this is the last thing I'll say about this game. Usually, the loss of a player on the defensive side of the ball doesn't necessarily impact your chances to win a Super Bowl, your chances to win. Usually. There are some cases, like you lose J.J. Watt in his prime. That's a huge loss. You lose an Aaron Donald in his prime. That's a huge loss. You lose a Patrick Willis in his prime. That's a huge loss. Ray Lewis or Troy Polamalu or Ed, you lose those type of players. Yeah. But usually when you lose a defensive player, it doesn't necessarily take you out of Super Bowl contention. And I'm not saying they're exactly out of Super Bowl contention, especially when you see how good this offense is. But losing somebody like Aiden Hutchinson for the Detroit Lions is the difference between Super Bowl caliber and maybe outside looking in. And I don't mean outside looking as I still think, especially when you see how the NFC is shaping up, I think the Lions are in prime position to make a Super Bowl. But not having Aiden Hutchinson is the difference between winning it and losing it. He is, in all intents and purposes, probably their second or third best player. I'll probably say second. And losing him for the season with a broken leg, it sucks. I wish for a speedy recovery. It was definitely gruesome watching, and for some reason they kept showing the replay. But obviously, you think about the person first, and I hope it looks like he has successful surgery and he's going to be out. I think they said 4 to 6 months. So obviously that's over with for that Super Bowl, or over it for the season. But after you think about the player, you think about the team, and unfortunately, this is the unlucky card that the Lions were dealt. And this, as impactful as he is to his team, this is like the Steelers essentially losing TJ Watt. While the Steelers are still good, they're not. Aiden Hutchinson is, in all intents and purposes, their defensive MVP, and you can argue their best player. So, again, I hope for a speedy recovery, and something like this can definitely affect their chances to win the Super Bowl. But in the meantime, congratulations to the Lions for beating the Cowboys 47-9. I've been riding mighty high on my commandership, and it came crashing down against the Baltimore Ravens as the Ravens beat them 30-23. What I loved about this game is this game going up against this opponent. It's easy for the Commanders to falter. This is in previous years, this would be the game that would, I guess you can essentially say, bring the organization back to reality. This is the type of game that would bring the organization back to the forefront of, okay, you still aren't that good of an organization. While you may have a winning streak, while you may have a good few weeks, you're not them. Let's chill out. And the beauty of it is, even though the Commanders lost, it was still a great game. Jaden Daniels, while outplayed by Lamar Jackson, but I mean, that's Lamar Jackson. I think right now he's leading the league in MVP voting. But to go toe to toe against a two-time league MVP, and in all intents and purposes playing like an MVP right now, and you don't even blink. The Commanders only lost by a touchdown. And it's not because of drastic mistakes. It's not because they weren't good. It's literally just because they played a better team. I'm not saying that the Ravens didn't show that they were the better team. But I think what the Commanders showed, even in the losses, there wasn't the sizable gap that there usually is when they play a playoff caliber team. I know you can talk about the blowout of game one, but that's game one. This Commanders team is good. Now, I will say the biggest thing holding us back, and the reason why I think that the Commanders are going to be a playoff team, I didn't think that going into the season because there's a lot of youth on this team, but one thing I will say is what could essentially jeopardize this team making to the playoffs is that secondary. Losing Jonathan Allen with a pec tear, he looks like he's out for the season. That is seismic for this team, especially a team that doesn't have their secondary buttoned up. I understand you have Deron Payne. I understand that you have Bobby Wagner, and they've been great. But even they've been able to assure that Washington has one of the best run defenses because their defensive front is really good. They're able to stop the run. What they struggle with is the pass. Yo, no offense to him. Zay Flowers had 9 receptions for 132 yards, which is a career high. And I think he had most of that in the first half. Now, yes, you can look at, you say they have one of the best run defenses, yet Derrick Henry rushed for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yes, that's Derrick Henry. He is the best. With Christian McCaffrey being hurt, he is right now the best running back in the league. But this Commanders team is good. It's just there are things holding them back. The past and the previous owner still has his imprint on this team. When you have, Jamin Davis and Emmanuel Forbes, who were first round picks or top round picks. I know Emmanuel Forbes was a first round pick. And they were healthy scratches. When you have St. Juice getting torched again. I mean, Jaden Daniels is a rookie. Let me remind, a very good rookie, and I think still should be in the driver's seat for offensive rookie of the year. But that's one thing I will say about this game. And the secondary for the Ravens wasn't that great either. Marlon Humphreys is starting to show his age. Nate Wiggins is still young. Kyle Hamilton is really good, but he's a safety. But there was a clear difference between the Ravens defense and the Commanders defense. It was a good game. Lamar Jackson was great. He had he threw for 323 yards. Oh, I don't know if it was this game or last game. I forgot to say it. He passed Cam Newton for second most rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history. So shouts out to Lamar Jackson. But I don't believe in moral victories. I don't. You win, you lose, you lose. So it's still a loss. But
I don't feel as bad about the Commanders losing to the Ravens because they only lost by 7. And I think that this is still a good team. I still believe in Jaden Daniels, and this is one of those games, especially in the past, that you'd have a good winning streak, then you finally play like a legit team, and then just get destroyed. But shouts out to the Baltimore Ravens for beating the Commanders 30-23. I want to stay on this for a second. And honestly, so the Steelers beat the Raiders 32-13. And most of what I want to talk about has nothing to do, sort of has something to do with this game, but really doesn't have much to do with this game. Reports came out saying that Russell Wilson is now in line to be the starter against the Jets this week. Russell Wilson, who they acquired this offseason alongside Justin Fields, who was the premier starter, pretty much the starter until he hurt his hamstring. I know that they say you're not supposed to lose your job when you're hurt. But in the same breath, they also say your best ability is availability. And I'm not here questioning the coaching, questioning the acumen of Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's coaching resume speaks for itself. It wouldn't be naive of me to question the coaching decisions, coaching ability of Mike Tomlin. I will say, though, I don't understand why you would make this decision right now. Now, it all could be a farce, and come Sunday or whenever they play the Jets, I think it is Sunday, come Sunday, Justin Fields could be at the helm yet again. But Justin Fields is healthy. Justin Fields has this team at a 4-2 record. I know Justin Fields isn't lighting up the, scoreboard passing wise, isn't, he hasn't been the best quarterback in the league. But what Justin Fields has done is he's shown the ability to get or to put the Steelers in position to win games. He has shown the ability to not lose games for the Steelers, something that was in question when he was in Chicago. In all intents and purposes, he's shown that he is, at least right now, the right quarterback for this team. And he hasn't done anything, in my opinion, to lose the job. I'm not saying that he has done something to secure it. What I'm saying is he hasn't done something to lose it. I would understand if he was amongst the league leaders in interceptions. I would understand if he was amongst the league leaders in fumbles. I would understand if you didn't have a winning record. But you're 4-2. You're second in the division. I don't understand why, in my opinion. Now, obviously, I've never been in an NFL locker room. I'm not an NFL player, nor my coach. I don't understand. What's kind of confusing to me is this seems like one of those decisions that could fracture a locker room. A locker room as fracturable as, I don't even know if that's a word. A locker room that's as fracturable as the Steelers when you have all the young players compared to all the old players. This doesn't seem like a smart move. Now, yes, I was one of those people that thought that Russell Wilson should be the starting quarterback going into the season. And I was very critical of Justin Fields, seeing as though everything that we heard going up into the season was Justin Fields, has not done anything to knock Russell Wilson off of that starting quarterback position. And I was very vocal in how important it is that Justin Fields wins this quarterback battle, essentially. So that was what I was saying going into the season. But the thing about data is a lot of times it gets updated. And Justin Fields, this offense has updated the data. And now I just don't understand. Look, I don't think Justin Fields, nor do I think Russell Wilson is that quarterback to get you over the top. But I think that one has been available, and when he's been available, he's been good. He hasn't been great, but he's been good. Good enough that I don't think he deserves to be demoted, essentially. And I'm just confused as to, I don't know what this is going to do to the locker room. And unless he's just been the Russell Wilson of old, the Russell Wilson that we saw go to 2 Super Bowls, I don't know what I don't think that this is a smart decision to bench Justin Fields, because I don't think he's done anything to get benched. That's just me. But shouts out to the Steelers for beating the Raiders 32-13. I guess we'll see. Yo, don't look now, bro, but the Buccaneers are one of the best teams in football. Baker Mayfield is a MVP candidate. Yo, the NFL, I say this all the time, professional sports are the best of the best. You get the best basketball players in the world in the NBA. You have the best hockey players in the world in the NHL. You have the best baseball players in the world in the MLB. You have the best football players in the world in the NFL. So to hang 51 on a team's head. Again, 51 in college is, I mean, that's college. Like you go against Akron University. I'm sorry, but come on. Or Ball State. Yeah, I understand you put 51 on their head. You putting 51 in an NFL team, especially an NFL team that has a defense that we think is as good as the Saints defense has been, that's saying something. When you throw 325 yards and 4 touchdowns, like Chris Godwin had 11 catches for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. Look, I understand that the Saints are in a period right now of not knowing. Like, you start the season on such a hot streak and you're dealing with injuries. I know Spencer Rattler started in place of Derek Carr because Derek Carr is not there. And you have some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but even still, putting 51 on a team's head is not heard of. Like, it happens, but not. It's very rare in the NFL because these are the best of the best. And as much crap as I gave the Buccaneers, as much crap as I've given, not crap, as much as I've highlighted some of the lowlights in Baker Mayfield's career, I am now, right now, he is an MVP candidate. And I'm very interested to see what happens on Monday Night Football when the Bucs go up against the Ravens. I'm not like they already beat the Lions. I want to see what they look like against the Ravens. A Ravens team that Lamar Jackson is like 22-1 against the NFC. Yet right now the Bucs are one of those. Yeah, the Bucs are tough, and Baker Mayfield is a is a MVP candidate. So shouts out to the Bucs for beating the Saints 51-27. Look, I don't think I was wrong. The Texans beat the Patriots 41-21. I will say I don't think I was wrong in the initial concern. I never said that Drake May wasn't good. I hear a lot of people that came to me and was like, yo, you said Drake May shouldn't start. And Drake May threw 3 touchdowns. Okay. Drake May threw for 243 yards. He only missed 13 passes. Okay. I never said Drake May wasn't good. What I said was, you're doing Drake May a disservice putting him in charge of an offense that is inept, putting him behind an offensive line that is statistically the worst offensive line in football. And as great as Drake May was, he did bounce right back, but there was a hit where he looked like he was out of it. I think Drake May has the possibility of having an incredible career. And he played well his first start. But the concerns that I had were there. The defense, the offensive line gave up, gave up a bunch of sacks. And Drake May doesn't have much talent to throw to. I understand that people are saying, this should have started they should have been started him. But again, I understand why they didn't. And I was very vocal in saying, I don't think they should start him. Because that offensive line is terrible. This is nothing on Drake May and his talent. This has everything to do with the surrounding pieces. I say, and if you want to, I'm not going to say this is going to stunt his growth and stunt his development, but what I will say is this has an ability. This offensive line is so terrible, it could get somebody hurt. And I don't wish that on anybody. Yes, Drake May had a really good game, but they also did lose by 20. And C.J. Stroud didn't play the best, even though he did throw 3 touchdowns. He didn't play the best. This is what happens, though. However, when Joe Mixon comes back, and when you have the players that they have, Nico Collins being out would be huge if you didn't have a Joe Mixon or a Tank Dell or a Stephon Diggs or a Dalton Schultz. The fact that you have them. And now, again, you have a Joe Mixon where C.J. Stroud doesn't have to be Superman. That's why that's how you get what you get. And this defense that is humming right now, the Texans are one of the best teams in football, and they look much different when, shocker, you look much different when you have a competent running game, i.e., the Texans compared to when you don't, i.e. the Cowboys. Shouts out to the Texans for beating the Patriots 41-21. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't feel any differently about the Eagles than I did before they beat the Browns 20-16. I was wrong. I said going into this game that the Eagles essentially have to beat the Browns, seeing as though how bad the Browns have looked. And I said beating the Browns does nothing for you. There's no, you're not going to get a pat on the back. You're not going to say, wow, you beat a really good team. You're mostly going to say this is what's supposed to happen. Compared to if you would have lost to the Browns, that would have been a huge firestorm. I was wrong. There are some talking points and there are some concerns about this Eagles team, even with a win. I know that you're going up against a top tier defense in the Browns. But let's not get it. And I will say this. The connection that Jalen Hurts has with A.J. Brown, that is electric. That is back. A.J. Brown had 6 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. And he had pretty much the game-sealing catch at the end of the game. Davante Smith also had some spectacular catches, and he had a touchdown as well. But this team, in all intents and purposes, had if it wasn't for some timely dropped balls by the Browns and a very inept first half by Deshaun Watson, this team would have lost. Even with Nick Sirianni yelling at the fans after he won. Even with Saquon Barkley, this defense isn't that good. Yeah, and I think they had 7 or 8 sacks, but that's because the Browns are probably the second worst offensive line, if not the first worst offensive line in football. I really like the connection that Jalen Hurts has with A.J. Brown, but again, and Saquon Barkley, I guess he didn't have to do a lot. He had 18 carries for 47 yards, but they didn't show me anything to think that they're drastically a better team than the now 1-5 Browns. Which is crazy to think about. And I think if Nick Sirianni has proven anything, he's proven that he is not the head coach moving forward. I'm not saying that he's not the head coach now, but he's not the head coach moving forward that can take this team to new heights. And it's not because of the back and forth with the fans. I think it's because they haven't separated themselves the way that I thought that they would and should have. I think they should have been separated themselves, and they haven't. I even said it, when you get Saquon Barkley with this roster on paper, you have one of, if not the best team in not just the NFC, but in the league. And while yes, you're 3-2, they haven't stood out. They're in dog fights pretty much every game. And again, they should have lost against the Browns. Now I know shoulda, woulda, coulda, but still, I don't feel any better about the Eagles after this win than I did before, and that, at least for me, should be concerning. But shouts out to the Eagles for beating the Browns 20-16. Yo, I thought that the Jaguars were. I predicted that the Bears were going to be the Jaguars in London. I just didn't think, because I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was, because we know how good the Jaguars are in London. I think going into Sunday they've been undefeated. But this is yet another game where, I know going into it, I said, and obviously on paper, and if you look at the history of the division, I said that the AFC North was the best division. Who would have thought that right now, is the NFC North? The NFC North that has Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, and Jared Goff is the best division by far in football. And I still don't think we've cracked the surface, or I still don't think we've cracked how great this Bears team can be. Caleb Williams continues to pick it up. He continues to get it. This week, him and Cole Kmet, the tight end, was just, their relationship was just magical. And this is what happens when you also have your full complementary of pieces. The connection between him and Keenan Allen looked really good as well. I think he had 2 touchdowns with Keenan Allen. This Bears team especially with their, I've never really been able to say this in my lifetime outside of that Super Bowl year, but this Bears team is great, or has a chance to be great. I know it started off pretty rocky with Caleb Williams, but this and which makes, I think, Sunday a huge game, because they're going against the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is playing well. Caleb Williams is now playing well. The Bears, man. The Bears have been incredible. And I don't think we've cracked how good that they can be. Which is crazy, because their defense is really good, and the NFC North is by far the best division of football. I think they're the only division that has every team with 4 wins right now. Now, yes, I understand they haven't played each other and they're going to beat up on each other, but still. And for the Jaguars, it's crazy how quick you can go from a great coach to the hot seat, and you're probably going to be out. Doug, their reports are saying that, Doug Peterson, who was a Super Bowl winning Super Bowl winning coach, and was looked at as a really good coach, is now one win away or one loss away from getting fired, which is crazy. Damn Trevor Lawrence, bro. 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, yet you only can score 16 points. You hate to see it. Shout out to the Bears for beating the Jaguars in London 35-16. The Bengals, and I kind of feel the same way about the Bengals than I feel about the Eagles. The Bengals beat the Giants 17-7. The Bengals didn't do anything great, spectacular. They beat a team that is reeling right now. They beat a team where their best rusher on the night was Daniel Jones with 11 rushes for 56 yards. I know Joe Burrow had that long rushing touchdown, but outside of that, they scored 17 points against a railing Giants team. I understand a win is a win. Shouts out to them for winning. But T. Higgins only had 77 yards. Jamar Chase was pretty much a no-show. Chase Daniels was okay, or Chase Brown, I think, was okay, but yeah. This Bengals team, I said it before, there's a lot of problems with this Bengals team. And while, yes, you can beat the Giants, and I think that they have a very favorable schedule, but if they do make it to the playoffs or play a good team, I don't know, because the Giants aren't that. The Giants scored their first home touchdown of the year in week 6. And shouts out to the Bengals. Damn, they're 0-3 at home. Shouts out to the Bengals for beating the Giants 17-7. Again, it goes back to the NFC North, man. The Packers beat the Cardinals 34-13. Jordan Love looks better and better week after week, man. He 258 yards, 4 touchdowns. Romeo Doubs caught 2 of those touchdowns. This Packers team is starting to become, well, not starting, but they are a tough out. Like that is a tough. Obviously, Lambeau's obviously been a tough place to play, but the Packers is turning into a tough team to beat. Jordan Love is playing like a premier quarterback in the league. This Josh Jacobs as 18 carries for 62 yards. He didn't have to do much. The star of the show was really Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. This Packers team is going. This is one of those teams where you don't want to see them. When Jordan Love is playing, like he kind of has that, like when he is playing to the best visibility, he is a top tier quarterback. But then he be some of them drives, he'd be like, dog, what are you looking at? But Jordan Love, he's a perfect example of when you get paid and you have question marks. Damn, was he worth it? Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Like we talk about Trevor Lawrence, and after he got paid, they're 1-5. Jordan Love gets paid, they're 4-2, and he missed 2 of those games. So, yeah, the Cardinals are not balanced. The Cardinals is a young team. Don't get me wrong, but they're not balanced. I know that Marvin Harrison Jr. went out with an injury or concussion. I hope that he's okay and he gets back a speedy recovery. But they're not balanced. And on top of them not being balanced, neither side, neither offense nor defense is good enough to really carry a team to victory. Trey McBride is cool at the tight end position. I think he had 96 yards on the day, but they don't. James Conner is good as well, but they don't have. There's not much, and I talked about there's not much talent on this team. They have young talent, which obviously can blossom into. It'll probably take a couple years, but they can blossom into a really good unit on the defensive side of the ball. And they have obviously good young players on the offense, but this team isn't good enough to have one or both sides not play well. If the offense doesn't play well, they're going to lose. If the offense plays well and their defense doesn't play well, they're going to lose. If the defense plays well and their offense doesn't play well, they're going to lose. This team is not balanced and is not good enough to not play well on one side, But shouts out to the Packers for beating the Cardinals 34-13. The Chargers beat the Broncos 23-16. And I don't know if I should be like excited for the future for the Chargers and Broncos, or if I should be concerned, because I look at both teams, and the Chargers are 3-2, the Broncos are 3-3. Justin Herbert had an okay game, 237 yards for a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins had 25 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. I can see the formula of a really good future for both of these teams. I know Jim Harbaugh had to leave for a medical reason, but he came back, so I hope he's cool. I can see the formula. You know, Bo Nix has looked much better than a lot of people thought he would. I can see the formula of a really good future with both of these teams. I can also see, okay, well, this is yet another week where the Broncos offense doesn't look good, even with Bo Nix. This is yet another week where, while the Broncos have an incredible defense, and Patrick Surtain is one of the best defensive players in football, the Chargers, they don't really, outside of J.K. Dobbins, they don't have a number one receiver at all. And they don't really have a comparable receiving core. So it's like, while I see a bright future because you have, you know, young really good pieces on the Broncos. Bo Nix is really good. You still have Javonte Williams. You still have Patrick Surtain, like I said. And then on the Chargers, J.K. Dobbins has been really good. Justin Herbert, he's kind of like a roller coaster, but he has the talent. Khalil Mack has been good, obviously, but he's not young. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. Congratulations to the Chargers for beating the Broncos, but I don't know how to feel. It's like I see some glaring issues, but then I see a bright future, possibly. So I don't know. Boy. And the Falcons beat the Panthers 38-20. I don't know what you want me to say. The Panthers are one of, if not the worst team in football. Shocker, Andy Dalton is not the savior that a lot of people thought he was after he got that win against the Raiders. Shocker. Even though, I mean, the NFC South has been really good this year outside of one team. The Panthers suck. I don't know what to tell you. Shouts out to, I mean, Tyler Algier had 18 carries for 105 yards and one touchdown, while Kirk Cousins had 225 yards and a touchdown. The Panthers suck. Yeah. I think that is week. No. Oh, God. Yo, never mind. The last game I'm going to talk about. Yo, the saying is, when somebody shows you who they are, you got to believe them. When somebody shows you their true colors, when somebody shows you exactly who they are, believe them. Will Levis has showed you that he is a extremely erratic quarterback that is not good enough. Even he has talent and he can be really good, but even that really good is not good enough to supersede the lowlights, supersede the low points. And the thing about Will Levis is those high highs and low lows can come in the same exact game, which we've seen almost every game this year. Yo, the talking point out of this game was Calvin Ridley pretty much saying, yo, he needs targets. And they were like, whoa, you had 8 targets in the first half. Yo, did you see those 8 targets? Man, in fact, say this is the football, right? And say I'm Calvin Ridley. This was what the targets look like. Like that's a target. How am I supposed to catch that? Yo, Will Levis, man. And the worst part about it is this Titans team has pieces. Again, you have Calvin Ridley. You have Tony Pollard, who's been really good. You have DeAndre Hopkins. Like you have this Colt, and you lost to a Colts team that is reeling with injury. By the way, you started Joe Flacco, who had 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh Downs has 7 receptions and a touchdown for 66 yards. You lost to a team that you essentially could have beat if you had competent quarterback play, but you don't. Again, if somebody showed you who they are, believe them. Congrats to the Colts for beating the Titans 20-17. I think that was week 6 of the NFL season. So, we had a big last thing before we go. I teed it up and I talked about how big that this for week 7 of the college football schedule was, and we had some bangers, man. Oregon beat Ohio State 32-31. I said Oregon was going to win the national championship. I'm not saying that they are right now, but I'm also not getting off of my pick. They're now ranked 2nd after beating. When you're playing a team, and I kept saying this about Oregon while watching the game, when you're playing a team as same conference, when you're playing a team that you're supposed to look eye to eye with, miscues can be detrimental. And Oregon kept having miscues. The issue was for Ohio State is they kept having miscues as well. And a miscue essentially ended the game for Ohio State with the quarterback diving or sliding with time expired. He pulled a Dak Prescott. But outside of that, we had other great games. Penn State beat USC 33-30. That was a very good game to win to overtime. Georgia beat Mississippi State 41-31. Alabama damn near should have lost to South Carolina. They beat them 27-25. Tennessee beat Florida 23-17. The best game of the day, honestly, was LSU upsetting Ole Miss 29-26. This is yet another loss where Ole Miss probably should have won, and I can't explain how they won or how they lost. But hey, LSU winning to Ole Miss LSU handled business. So shouts out to them. Other games we thought were going to be really good weren't. Like, we thought the Red River rivalry was going to be good, but Texas beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma, this is yet another year where their defense is pretty good. It's just their offense sucks. I'll say it like this. It's either or. It's either their offense is really good and their defense sucks, or their defense is really good and their offense sucks, Oklahoma, I know they lost to number 1 Texas 34-3. Their defense isn't that bad. It's just their offense is so inept. Like, yeah, bro, it's crazy. But the Red River rivalry disappointed. And Stanford got dragged. Stanford lost 49-7. And a team that I thought was, once you lose to, I forgot who they lost to, but once you lose to a team that Notre Dame lost to, no, was it Ball State? No, it was NIU, I think. I essentially thought it was over for the college football playoffs, but they have roared back and they dominate. They destroying people. But, yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, and Cam Rising, he got hurt. Damn, he threw 3 interceptions? Shit. Oh, God. I didn't realize he threw 3 interceptions. But Cam Rising got hurt. And now he's going to be eligible for he's out for the season. And now he's probably going to come back for his 8th season. Which means that he is going to be older than a lot of NFL players in college. Same thing is going on with homie in Miami. I think their tight end is on his 9th because he used to play for Oregon, is on his 9th year. Like, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link's in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate everyone that has subscribed, everybody that will subscribe. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. Also, please subscribe to the DSPs. That's either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs, wherever you want to hear this luscious voice. Please subscribe, and it means a lot. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily. If you want to see reels, stories, if you want to go back and forth, that's probably the quickest way to get to me. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth and debating. It just means that not only you're passionate about what you feel, but you're listening to me, and I appreciate both. So please follow the socials. Until next time, much love.